2019 to be a year of acceleration as Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta presents what he calls the Impuntuo budget, a document that he says will get the country to work again.
Mr. Speaker, this is an accelerator budget. In the spirit of this season, I so move President Akufo-Addo's Impuntuo budget.
But the minority insists it's a budget of utter hopelessness, rehashed of last year's document, empty and unachievable.
I'm disappointed because I thought this is an opportunity for the government to redeem some of its lost glories. But I can conclude that the budget is empty.
I don't know about listening government, but much more about a government that is now realizing that the slogans are easy to make, but the reality is totally different.
On Top Story tonight, we have highlights of the 2019 budget, plus reactions from artisans at the Abosso Kind Spare Parts Enclave in the special package.
The time we came here, you see that our light is on. The government is trying. Well, the previous one, he promised a lot, but we didn't see any improvement.
To me, when they read budget in Ghana, what they read on the day is different from what they do when the year comes.
I have special guests in the studio and on the phone as well. Here on Top Story, brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Bond Savings and Loans, CIMG Savings and Loans Company of the Year, Gasem Cement, the Nation Builder, Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready, and Nationwide Health Insurance.
Can anyone recall a social intervention policy that the Social Democratic NDC introduced in its last 8 years in government, expecting parents who believe that their burdens and their wards will go to school, dying businesses that require some stiffness to live again, like the bones of Ezekiel, Ghanaians who had sat in darkness and wanting to see light, that those who believe have seen their dreams and aspirations come to fruition.
So you have the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta today as he presented the financial plans and policies for the 2019 fiscal year with a lot more attention to infrastructure. After the nearly 4-hour presentation, already there have been reactions from various quarters, including the minority. According to them, it is largely a rehash of portions of last year's document and will further deepen the hardships that Ghanaians are already going through. A major highlight of the budget statement themed a stronger economy for jobs and prosperity was the minister's announcement that to assess social services, one needs a tax identification number and the review of the 35% income tax for persons who earn 10,000 and above to 30% for persons who earn 20,000 and above. We'll get to have these highlights shortly. And also, in 2019, there will be a clear direction on how to achieve Ghana Beyond Aid status.
As you know, His Excellency the President constituted a committee to draw up a Ghana Beyond Aid Charter. The committee comprises representatives from a wide cross-section of Ghanaians, including government, organized labor, the private sector and employers, and the youth. Work on the charter and on the detailed contours of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda is well advanced, and the committee will present this report to the President before the end of the year. Following that, there will be consultation with Ghanaians before revising the committee's work for eventual submission for Parliament.
The Finance Minister also noted that following what he calls the massive success of the Planting for Food and Jobs program, government will launch the livestock module of the program next year.
Mr. Speaker, 34% of our workforce is in agriculture. Therefore, if we can raise productivity and incomes in agriculture, we can positively impact the lives of millions of Ghanaians. Expanded and reliable production of agricultural produce will form a very important base for our industrialization. Drive, create modern jobs, expand our exports, and reduce the amount of foreign exchange we spend on food imports. Following a year of implementation of the Planting for Food and Jobs program, the agriculture sector witnessed a growth rate of 8.4% in 2017. This was after almost a decade of erratic sector performance of an average growth rate of 3.4%. On account of this massive success, government implemented an expanded version of the Planting for Food and Jobs in 2018 with more ambitious targets. Compared to a target of 500,000 farmers, a total of 577,000 farmers were supplied with subsidized fertilizers and seed for the 2018 cropping season, and we expect another highly successful year. In 2019, we plan, Mr. Speaker, to expand the program to cover 1 million farmers. Never before, Mr. Speaker, in our history, since the cocoa industry, have we given so much prominence to our farmers. In 2019, government will launch the livestock model of Planting for Food and Jobs called Rearing for Food and Jobs, with the objective of increasing the production of selected livestock, especially poultry. Mr. Speaker, we believe we can leverage the PFJ and the RFJ programs and our other efforts in agriculture.
So just in case you were wondering, from now onwards on 2019, if you have to access social services, you would need a tax identification number. Rethink if you do not have one. And for those of you earn 10,000 and above, I'm sure you were being taxed 35% on income tax. You were worried. There's a review of that. Now it is for persons who earn above 20,000 Ghana cedis. They will pay 30%. Listen to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta.
The nominal public debt stock at the end 2018 was 170.8 billion, comprising external and domestic debt of 86.6 billion and 84.1 billion respectively. The overall rate of debt accumulation in 2018 is 19.8%, driven primarily by the cost of the cleanup of the financial sector involving resolution of 7 defined banks. The rate of debt accumulation would have been 11.5%, the lowest in 10 years without the cleanup exercise. Government in the mid-year review introduced an additional personal income tax ban of 10,000 Ghana cedis and above per month at a rate of 35%. We have listened to the feedback from the public and come to the conclusion that some relief from this tax measure in the middle class is justified. Accordingly, government proposes to review this band to impact monthly income above 20,000. In view of the recent wage increases, wages around minimum wage levels have become partly taxable. In keeping with government commitment to lighten the tax burden of minimum wage earners at the lower levels of the wage ladder, minimum wage will attract no income tax.
Highlights of the nearly 4-hour budget presentation earlier today by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Let me bring in Minority Spokesperson on Finance and the former Deputy Minister of Finance, Ato Forson, who is with me in the studio. We also have on the phone line Chairman of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Dr. Mark Hesibeyeboah. He's joining us on the phone. Later on as well, we'll get to hear your reactions. We've been speaking to some artisans at the Abosokai. Of course, also in Kumasi, there's some reactions coming in. And we'll hear from economist Professor Godfred Bokping as well here on this special edition of Top Story. Welcome to the studio, Mr. Ato Forson.
Thank you very much.
And if you can hear me, Dr. Mark Hesibeyeboah, welcome to Top Story.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen, here on Top Story. So we'll start with you, Mr. Ato Forson. It looks like there have been a lot of reactions from the minority after this 4-hour presentation. It's a budget that we are told is going to get Ghana to work again, a massive focus on infrastructure, job creation and prosperity as well. That's the main theme for it. I'll start with you, Ato. How exciting was this budget for you, 2019?
See that. For me, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, obviously, because the budget, to me, is empty.
Is it?
Empty in the sense that a lot of the talk is not supported by the fiscal. In fact, the fiscal tables does not support a lot of the talks. And I say this and I'll give you the reasons. Well, let me start with the revenue. We are aware that the revenue is not performing for the year 2018. In fact, if you were to look at appendix, page 202 of the budget statement, government between quarter 1 and quarter 3, they should have collected revenue approximately 9.3% of GDP. So far, they have only collected 8.7% of GDP. They have projected earlier on to have to collect up to 12.9% of GDP by end year 2018. Because of what is going on, and in fact, the finance minister himself admitted that they are having revenue challenges that presupposes that they will not achieve the target. And that is a fact. In fact, in terms of nominal terms, the total deviation from January to December is 2.4 billion. I thought the finance minister would learn from this and project appropriately. Unfortunately, in projecting, they've again projected 13.1% of GDP in terms of revenue, tax revenue that they are going to get. That is overly ambitious, and they cannot achieve it because it's not backed by tax policy. There's no measure for them to be able to to attract up to the additional 1.5 or 1% of GDP. There's no measure. Compliance measures as listed in the budget, normally we don't cost compliance because we've all worked there before. You don't cost compliance. Those compliance measures will not yield that much of revenue. Even when they widen the tax debt? What policy have they done? Are they implementing here, or they have proposed here to widen the tax net to bring in that revenue? So straight away, I can tell you that the budget is dead on arrival. It's dead on arrival because the 4.2% deficit, 4.2% deficit is at risk. It is at risk because if, for instance, this year you do tax revenue, the outturn, if the outturn, for instance, is about, let me give you, about 11.5, and that is my projection, they can stretch to say 11.8. The best they could do in the year 2012, based on what they have announced here, is for them to do up to 12% of GDP. But 13% of GDP clearly shows that the tax revenue is overstated by a minimum of 4 billion. A minimum of 4 billion, between 4 billion to 5 billion. And that clearly put the budget at risk. And then back to expenditure. You see, even if let me even talk about the bit on revenue again. I'm glad that the finance minister listened to us. In fact, we have said oftentimes that the PIT, the personal income tax band that he recently introduced at 35%, is regressive and it's not going to help. And for that matter, we asked him to withdraw. Yes, he has listened to us, he has withdrawn that. But I want to urge the finance minister to listen to us more often, because oftentimes some of the things that we say is not because we are criticizing because we are opposition. We are criticizing because we think it is wrong. And Ghana, we want Ghana to prosper, because if Ghana prospers for all of us. Quickly, MFA, it shows you, the withdrawal of this tax policy shows you clearly that government was in haste. And oftentimes, most of their tax policies and economic policies, they implement them in haste. Because you cannot just come to Parliament in a media review in July, introduce a tax measure and remove it in November. I mean, it's never done.
They've listened to feedback, they say, but we'll get to that.
But I ask the question, what kind of analysis did they put in place? What kind of work did they put in place for them to be able to arrive at that in the first place? They are
listening to people, but we'll get to it. Hold it. That's your preliminary thoughts on today's budget statement. Let's bring in Dr. Mark Esibeyebwa. I'm sure you've been listening to Ato Forson. For him, this budget is dead on arrival. A number of targets you set are not backed by policy. And also the 13% of revenue of GDP that you're targeting is overstated. It's something that you can never achieve, looking at what we've done for this year.
I think the only thing I heard him say it's overly ambitious will be the revenue. I haven't heard him say there's any policy initiative or target that cannot be met.
Hello, Dr. Esibeyebwa. It looks like we've just lost Dr. Esibeyebwa there on the phone. Some challenges there that will be rectified shortly here on Top Story. You're still listening to Top Story here on Joy 99.7 FM. We're taking a look at the budget, 2019 budget statement as presented by Ken Ofori-Atta in Parliament today. Ato Forson is with me in the studio. So it looks like there's a difficulty for Dr. Esibeyebwa to hear us in the studio, but we'll get that rectified shortly. But Ato, he's saying that it looks like he was trying to react to some of the comments that you made. But let's try again. looks like we have him back on the line. Dr. Marcus Ibeyabwa, you were saying? Hello, Dr. Marcus Ibeyabwa. Okay, it looks like that challenge will be rectified. I beg your pardon, but that will be rectified shortly. If you're listening to us also and you want to join us with your thoughts and comment, also your expectation, and also I'm sure if it was met, you could let us know here on via WhatsApp on 0244340437. We'll get to hear reactions also from Kumasi, like I said. Also, we've been to Abosoka, and there have been reactions also coming in. We'll bring that also to you. But Ato, you're saying that it is already dead on arrival. You're raising issues about we went to the issue about this 10,000 income tax and why it was removed and what actually thought process went into it. You heard the finance minister. He says that they've listened. They are listening government. They've heard the feedback. So they have to give it to us.
You see, MFA, I have a difficulty. The difficulty I have is when you introduce an economic policy, you don't go back and remove it after a couple of months. Just a couple of months. That is wrong. Clearly wrong. Because obviously, to introduce economic policy, we expect that you do some work, find out about the impact before you introduce them. And for you to introduce something in July, implement it in August and remove it in November is unacceptable. It shows how haste that this government, take decisions. Because some of the decisions, when they come to Parliament, you ask yourself a question. I'll give you another example on the back of expenditure. One, Ghana Education Trust Fund. Recently, in 2017, the finance minister appeared before Parliament with a bill called Earmark Fund Realignment and Capping Bill. The intention at the time was to make sure they can rake in more revenue from the statutory funds. Now, they used that act to cap Ghana Education Trust Fund. Took, in 2 years, about 1.6 billion Ghana cedis from Ghana Education Trust Fund. In fact, this year, they've said that Ghana Education Trust Fund should have 1.895 billion Ghana cedis. Out of that, they capped some money. Within the last 2 years, they've capped up to 1.5 billion. Again, this year, they have capped another 600 million and aligned 400 million. The two put together is about $1 billion. And then now the same person, the same government, you come to Parliament, telling members of Parliament to approve a loan for you, $1.5 billion for the purposes of paying, one, arrest, 750 million, two, be able to complete the uncompleted or abandoned jobs, and three, start new project. Between how much we owe contractors and how much actually they need to be able to complete abandoned projects, about 1.5 billion. But already halfway in the year, you have capped money that's supposed to get fund amounting to about 1.6 billion. So what sort of policy incohesion is this?
Let's bring in Dr. Marcus Ibeyabwa again. Let's try again and see if we have Dr. Marcus Ibeyabwa on the line. Dr. Marcus Ibeyabwa, if you can hear me. So Ato Forcing has been saying that this budget is dead on arrival. Figures do not support the talk as it's put out there. For him, everything that is put out today is unachievable.
Okay. MFA, you have to look at what the managers of the economy are doing. If you look at a bigger picture, then you appreciate what is happening. This government came into office January 7th, 2017, and then all the macroeconomic fundamentals were weak. If we talk of all the macro indicators, they were off track under the IMF program. In 2 years, every single macroeconomic indicator in the country has improved from where the MPP picked it up from. Every single one of them, be it inflation, the deficit, the debt stock, the interest rate, exchange rate, every single one of them. So it means that economic managers must be doing something right. In 2 years, they've restored macro stability. For which reason, not Ato Forcing, not the NDC, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, Fitch, every single credit rating agency international have upgraded Ghana. You know what it means? It means that we are doing something right. Now, when we go to the market to borrow for the first time, the Eurobond we issued in...
Well, it looks like the phone is not allowing us to have a very nice conversation this afternoon, but definitely, we'll definitely get to rectify that. But you heard him. fundamentals were weak. We've all heard that. And they've been able to stabilize the macroeconomic indicators and all that. And you sit here and say that nothing has been done. There's nothing exciting about the 2019 fiscal year budget statement that was presented in Parliament today, Mr. Forson.
I find it very difficult to believe anytime I hear our brothers, the MPP, making some statement that they inherited a very weak economy.
Didn't they?
I tell you what they inherited. One, they inherited oil revenue in excess of 80% over the previous. Between January 2017 to September 2000, in fact to June 2018, they've had additional oil revenue in excess of $1 billion. Let's find out what they've used that money for. In the year 2019, they have projected to bring in oil revenue approximately $1.1 billion, which is about 5.4 billion cedis according to the budget. That is revenue streams. They inherited energy sector levies, approximately 4 billion Ghana cedis annually, to fix the economy, obviously. They've inherited a stable, what you call, power. They inherited
stable
yes,
power?
Of course, they did. Tell
Stable
me
power?
tell me what they've added so far to the megawatts in terms of how much power we generate. Tell me what they've done at the power sector. I don't know anyone. Everything else was put in place by the previous administration. So I am of the opinion that this administration should have done better than what they are doing now, because what they've done so far is not encouraging, considering what they inherited. So I disagree. He's entitled to his opinion, but obviously I disagree. That is the point. And then let me also say something on the back of debt. This government inherited a debt of 120 billion. So far today, the finance minister informed us that the debt as of September is 170 billion Ghana cedis. So it means 20 months down the line, they've added public debt approximately 50 billion Ghana cedis to Ghana's debt profile. In fact, if you use the new series of the GDP new series, debt to GDP at the time we were leaving office was 56.8. Today, they have projected debt to GDP at 57.9 or 57.8, around that numbers. But I've seen already in social media, people are trying to compare the new series to the old series. I don't know that kind of analysis is that. Then if you want to compare apples with apples, compare old and old or new and new, because the two doesn't work together. You cannot pick and choose.
Let's invite Dr. Marcus Ibeyeboah into the discussion again. I pray that this time around the phone line will be very stable so we can have Dr. Marcus Ibeyeboah make his presentation fully. Welcome back again. We apologize for this phone line. But you heard Atu Forson. He's saying that you did not inherit a weak economic fundamentals. It was more stable at the macroeconomic levels. And then also he's adding that you inherited stable power supply, which most people would disagree with him. But what do you think?
My sister, if the macro fundamentals were good, why didn't the credit rating agencies upgrade Ghana? Why didn't they upgrade Ghana? You left the country inflation rate of 15.4%. The debt to GDP ratio was at 73.1%. Look, those two indicators alone sent us to B- credit rating. We have brought the inflation down to single digits. We've restored macro stability. It is for that reason. If you had a strong economy, you would have been upgraded. The last time we were B was under President Kufuor. You came in 8 years, you took us back to B-. These new managers of the economy have come in 2 years. They've caused Ghana to be upgraded.
There definitely is a challenge here in the studios that really must be rectified and will be done shortly. And I apologize once again, Dr. Marcus Ibeyeboah, for this. It looks like there's a power issue right here that will be rectified shortly. But you seem to be getting all the opportunities to be able to make your point. But you've been listening to Dr. Marcus Ibeyeboah. We'll definitely raise him back on the line so that we can have this discussion. It will be a fair...
I enjoy debates and I want debates.
Yes, so of course, we all want that debate. But you've been listening to him. Your quick reaction whilst we try to raise him back on the line.
Amefa, let me take you back to the budget statement. The budget statement for me is empty. You see?
Empty,
very
unachievable.
Empty, very empty. Empty in the sense that most of the very infrastructure that has been announced here are not supported by the fiscal tables. I'll give you an example. Go to Ministry of Roads. The budget allocation to Ministry of Roads, capital expenditure is 380 million Ghana cedis for Ministry of Roads. And so look at the roads that has been listed. I don't know how they are going to fund it. And then also Ghana Education, Road Fund. Road Fund budget already has been capped. And we expect Road Fund to have received something in excess of around 1.8 billion. Yet, they are saying they are going to give Road Fund 964 million. Again, Road Fund money amounting to about 800 million has been used for consumption. That is a question. I made reference to National Health Insurance. The National Health Insurance levy should bring in
declared arrears from 2014.
You see, let me say something.
You were not able to do so.
Let me tell you something. Yes, they may have cleared arrears, but how much arrears have they also created going forward? I think it's a question that we have to ask, and we should ask this independently. I say this because within 2 years, amount of money that is supposed to go to National Health Insurance, of which you have contributed out of the VAT that you pay, or the levy you pay, and what I also pay. This government has decided to take part of that money for the purposes of consumption. Again, in this year's budget, the 2019 budget, National Health Insurance is supposed to get 1,895 million Ghana cedis. What they have done here is that they are only giving them 1,692 million Ghana cedis. So in essence, about 200 million National Health Insurance money has been used to improve the budget, to improve the fiscal. And $2.5 billion
has been devoted for infrastructure alone for next year.
No, let me tell you something. In the budget statement, what they have informed us is that the capital expenditure is 8.5 billion, of which foreign finance is about 5.4 billion, and 3-point-something billion is for domestically financed capital expenditure. Foreign finance comes with its own loans. And these are projects that are already ongoing. An example is Kumasi Airport. Another example is the Volivo. Another example is the interchange on the way to Kumasi. I've forgotten the name of Achimota. After Achimota, there's an interchange there. So those are projects that you draw down. We call it foreign finance capital expenditure.
So let's go to the phone line. Just hold that thought. Just hold the train of thought there, and then we'll try again. I know it's annoying at this point, but we'll try again, and then reach Dr. Mark Esibeyebwa on the phone. Dr. Esibeyebwa, I'm sure you've been following the discussion. Thank you so much for your patience. But for him, this budget is actually empty. But let me ask you specifically on this budget, what should excite us as Ghanaians in this budget? What at all is in it that should excite me or those listening to us as Ghanaians?
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, the government has laid the foundation in restoring macro stability, which we promised. Now, the next level had been expenditure on the social sectors. And you would have seen the introduction of NAPCO, free SHS, expanding school feeding, and all those. The next level that this government seeks to get to is capital expenditure. And clearly, we are going to see renewed vigor in this area. Before Parliament is a request, get funds to borrow about 1.5 billion. This is going to provide educational infrastructure. Road projects from the Sino Hydro deal is going to take off early next year. So for the carpenter out there, for the mason, for the plumber, the electrician, for the guy who sells cement, iron rods, the one who wins stones and sand, all of them are opportunities now in the construction sector. So for me, there's excitement because once construction is taking off, then the whole economy receives a boost. So having laid the foundation, having spent so much on social in the social sector, I'm excited that this government has now repivoted and said that now let's focus on capital expenditure. Roads, dams, bridges. This is when the one district, one factory is actually going to take off because after laying a solid foundation, now I think we are ready to go. So for me, that's how I assess the performance of the economic managers. That yes, in the first 2 years, you've restored macro stability. You've done a lot of social spending. Now I want to see infrastructure spending, and the budget has delivered.
And you are hopeful that this will definitely be a developmental budget, impuntual budget, as you christened it.
That is why I pointed to the sources of the fund. The GET fund funding that is coming to build schools, to improve the infrastructure in our schools. It's ring fence. It is coming. The Sino Hydro deal, $2 billion, it is there. We've gone back to CDB.
Dr. Makisibe, we lost you again. It looks like there's really such a challenge with the phone line there, but we'll definitely correct it. It's the top of the hour 6. We've just entered Newsnight, but there's a special edition here of Top Story, is the special budget edition. But we'll get the headlines shortly from my colleagues, so then we can continue the discussion and wrap up with Mr. Forsing and, of course, Dr. Makisibe Yeboah, plus your reactions from Abossey Okai, also from artisans in Kumasi as well. And then yours also when you join us via WhatsApp on 0244 340 437. Newsnight starts now.